have D2 every day, there's no D3. They're just in a different context. There's no D3, they're just not. Because we can get it into my email.
Would you like us?
Give it. You get to sign it, you lose.
Look at that guy.
Good afternoon. You may have spent an afternoon in the cinemas this summer watching two of the hottest movies of the year. Today, I can do you one better. You're about to witness something far better than a double feature. Try a quadruple feature, showcasing 4 of the hottest acts in town. Let's meet your cast. Myah Hrinko lived in her own Barbie world as an intern at Skinny Time Media. As a general producer and a motion graphic designer, it was her job to add a little more sparkle to the world, and learn that there's a difference that only she can make. Life was placid and fantastic for Lexie Vigna this summer with her internship at Chemistry Advertising Agency. She made some fabulous designs for bus wraps, billboards, and more, and took some major steps out of Barbie land here at Waynesburg into the real world. Durkin's explosive summer happened at WOY-TV in beautiful Oak Hill, West Virginia. As an MMJ intern, he was responsible for finding stories, shooting footage, and editing news packages. Tim's stories weren't a responsibility. He didn't take a deep dive into the morality of nuclear weapons, but he did learn a thing or two about the ethics of good journalism. Eric Bennet interned at Jennerstown Speedway Complex as a producer, director, and more. It doesn't take a nuclear physics degree to know he's passionate about the sport and has all the explosive action you could dream of. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for, today's quadruple feature starts now. I hand the floor off to Ms. Hrinko and the rest of this excellent cast.
Imagine a world where creativity and collaboration are the driving force behind every successful business. A world where innovation and imagination come together to make sensational identities for storytelling. Welcome to Skinny Time Media, a powerhouse of creativity and innovation in the realm of digital communication. Today I'm so proud to share with you my mesmerizing journey that I embarked on alongside what I believe to be some of the best in business. Skinny Time Media, for those of you that do not know, are a communication agency dedicated to helping companies enhance their culture and identity through effective communication tools. Throughout my internship, I had the opportunity to work on various projects and face several challenges, which shaped me both professionally and personally. When I first joined and started to interview for this position, I was really unsure of what my roles and responsibilities would be, as I stated in my interview that I was very unfamiliar with motion graphics, producing, and sequencing. Lo and behold, I found out that I would be involved in none other than motion graphics, production, and sequencing. Working with veterans, as is, and very seasoned professionals is very intimidating. So as you can imagine, this was not easy at first. I was asked to be thrown in with the wolves, and they did just that. But I started to have this issue where I started to compare myself to these seasoned professionals and ask why I wasn't on par on what they were creating. One question changed the entire trajectory of how I thought about this internship position. That question being, how are you comparing yourself to creatives that have over 20 plus years of experience? I mean, think about that. Why was I comparing myself to people that have 20 plus years of experience? This changed my mindset completely from how do I impress anyone and everyone by knowing exactly what I'm doing always, to how do I absorb as much information as humanly possible so that I not only learn the fundamentals, but I learn the soft skills that will help me forever. I initially lacked a lot of confidence, as you may guess, and I feared rejection. But with countless support of my colleagues, I learned to trust my instincts and speak up. The first project I got the opportunity to work on was with Ryan Rusnick. And let me tell you a little bit about Ryan. He has the title of a top-notch, senior-level motion graphics designer. would like to mention that this is the first time I'm sincerely doing any sort of motion graphics. So as you can imagine, I was a little intimidated. But to work alongside him was nothing short of an honor. Ryan helped me initially to start to animate signatures for a company that we have and a client that we work with called ATI, which is Allegheny Technological Institute. And the signature animations are really, really complex and remind me, this is the first time that I was doing this. So I was really intimidated, but like Ryan does, he devised a plan. Ryan would connect his monitor to his Mac, to an exterior monitor where I would watch and take notes step by step, and we ran through it twice. He thought it was going to be once, it ended up being twice. God bless his patience. These were my notes. These are a step-by-step, 4-page step-by-step, an export guide, and an approval guide. The approval guide is for our producer, who was Kelly at the time, and she needs to make sure that everything is on par with our project review grant kit. So this was also not my first draft. The day that I took these notes, it was all over the place, no colors, I could barely read it, so I had to go home that night and I had to color code it so that I could be used to them the next time that I came in. And thankfully, we ended up completing these signatures in a lot less time than that was planned with us. I think we finished about 2 weeks early, which was unheard of, which opened up an opportunity for me to continue to work on the motion graphics side of things, and that helped me to be a little bit more confident in my abilities. I did get a really good taste of motion graphics, but let me tell you about the other exciting part. I was so excited to be on set and be invited to set for the Beaumont College shoot. I was beyond excited because when I was younger, I'm a big movie person. Being on set is like a dream of mine, so there's just nothing like being on set. I felt like a little kid in a candy store, to summarize. But this is Rob. Rob Griffith is one of the U.S. directors that we have at Standing Time Media, and looking at his work just makes you want to take 10,000 words worth of notes, which I did. But it was really an experience. He even put me in front of the camera, which was really cool. As you can see here, I was obviously really excited. Like I said, kid in a candy store. But this wasn't actually the last time that it happened. Soon after, I ended up working as a general producer for a client that we have known as Sabika Jewelry. If anybody likes jewelry, then you know about Sabika Jewelry. They're my favorite. So I was jumping for joy, to say the least. I was given the opportunity to be the general producer, and I seriously cannot have asked for a better client. Working with Miriam, who is the daughter of the founder of Sabika, was nothing short of amazing. Working with Miriam and her team at Sabika, they were just so willing to help me learn. And you'll find that in a lot of your internships. They want you to learn. We had our first meeting just to go over the project brief, and I asked during my first meeting if I would be able to come to their 2-day shoot for this fall collection that I can now show you because it's out, by the way. And my face hurt so much from smiling. I was in my glory. I was surrounded by jewelry and creatives, really good, seasoned, talented creatives. It was a total win-win. I seriously wish you could have seen my face. Oh wait, you can't. Again, I was in front of the actual camera, and let me tell you, I was so excited. This is also me. I was trying really hard to be cool because this is a really piece of jewelry, but it's really cute and expensive, and I really wanted to take it home. I ended up getting something else, but anyway. Being in front of the camera, I will know, is not for everybody, but I had so much fun doing it, which I learned about myself. But when I was not in front of the camera, I unknowingly started to network with other professionals there. Everybody was so willing to help me learn, and I ended up leaving with a ton of new contacts. These specific individuals were so willing to help me learn, and they were open to any and all questions that I had. Ross in the upper right-hand, or left-hand, I'm sorry, upper left-hand corner was our videographer and director of the shoot. Miriam's who I was in direct contact with for the actual production. Dominica is the coolest woman I've ever met. No offense, Mom. And I can't even tell you, she was the stylist and makeup artist on set, and she is the best of the best. She's seriously the coolest person I've ever met. Doris is actually the PR agency that Sabika outsources to. It's called Green Dot Communications, and I actually will be potentially doing an internship with her this upcoming semester. So it just goes to show you how a little community like that can actually turn into something bigger. So I think every single one of them, they really made the experience worthwhile. I learned a lot from them, and they answered every serious and stupid question that I had, so thank you to them. To summarize, it was nothing short of a transformative experience. I cannot thank Skinny Tie enough. They gave me so much of a deeper understanding of the industry, ins and outs, soft skills and hard skills. A lot of the hard skills we develop here, but soft skills they really honed on me for. And in turn, I was able to develop my abilities and what I can do. Like I stated before, at the beginning, I knew nothing about motion graphics, I knew nothing about production, and I knew nothing about cutting and sequencing videos, but here we are now, and I know how to do all three proficiently for my entry-level position. They really opened the door for me to do continuous learning, and I thank them so much for that. So again, a huge thank you to Skinny Time Media. They cannot be here today, but this is being recorded. I really cannot thank them enough. They're somebody that I continue to be in contact with to this day, and I hope to work with in the future. And a thank you to you all for not only coming, but having me here. So, if you have any questions. I saw a hand in the back. Is that Darren? Yes, Darren.
So what have you been able, what skills, you mentioned the skills that you learned in the, what have you been able to take from that internship and apply to stuff here this semester at Waynesburg?
A lot, truthfully, and that's the short answer, but the long answer is just collaboration and how to go about collaboration. There's an entire art to collaboration that a lot of people don't focus on, and one of which being just the creative outlets that you can use. We use a lot of softwares, one of which being Monday. We're actually using it right now. If you talk to Trevor, Rodell, and Lexie, we are using that to make sure that everything's in place and in process for our actual practicum project that we're doing, the redesign of the department. I'm sure you've heard about it.
Yeah.
So I'd say just how to use creativity strategically. Any other questions?
So it sounds like you mentioned the transformative experience. Do you think you can far more realistically see yourself as someday a seasoned creative, just like them?
That's definitely the goal. Being around these people, it's like, you know how when you play a sport, some of you definitely know, if you play a sport and the team is not as good as you, sometimes you play down to their level. But when you're working with professionals that are so seasoned and so talented, you can take so much from them, you tend to play up to those levels. So that's definitely the goal. I can't guarantee it, but what I can guarantee is that I'm going to work hard to become that. Any other questions? I saw a hand in the back, I thought. Yeah, okay.
You mentioned some of the challenges that you faced. What were some ways that you were able to overcome them through, creativity and just through your experiences?
Questions, and questions. I think there's a really big misconception that we aren't allowed to ask questions as an intern, like that we're supposed to know everything, like I said. That is so not the case. They were actually upset if I didn't ask any questions. It would be Chris Clutter would be like, okay, so you know what we're talking about. No, actually, I have a question about this. So I just encourage everybody to ask as many questions as they can. And that overcome every single challenge that I had was just to ask an experienced professional. So, thank you very much, guys. Next speaker will be Lexie Vigna, so give her just as much attention, please.
It's evil Barbie, but she's in a black suit.
So despite what you may think, no, I did not spend my entire summer in the laboratory doing organic chemistry. Thank goodness. However, I did spend it as a graphic design intern at a chemistry advertising agency. For 10 weeks, I grew new design skills, I met tons of new people and did a bunch of networking. I also had the opportunity to design on a scale that I never had before. So, welcome to the lab. The lab is what chemistry likes to call its workplace. They like to see it more than just an office, but really a full-fledged laboratory for coming up with new ideas and facilitating a really creative environment where really anything can go. Chemistry is an independent creative agency that prides itself, like I said, in its ability to break things down and really build things back up from nothing or from completely new ideas. So here's a look at what my summer looked like at a quick glance. I worked in the Henry Oliver building in the city of Pittsburgh, right in the middle. I was in the office twice a week, so that was my desk set up to the monitor situation. And then I got to work from home 3 of those days, so that was a really nice work schedule for me. Chemistry was really my first real look at what the real world of design was, and I'm very grateful for that. So meet the chemist. This is what chemistry calls its workers. So this is my supervisors in my team. First on the left, we have Ed Bizich. He was a junior designer. I worked mostly with him the entire time. We often were on the same project. We would get 2 different things, so we could bring 2 different concepts to the table. I usually sent all of my work to him first so that he could send it over. He was my main form of contact. In the middle is Lauren Intronti. She was the group director of project management. She was the person who led all of the creative meetings between all of the creative teams, between all of the places that chemistry acted, because it's all across the country on a couple different locations. So I would touch base with her. She would go through all of the projects that everyone at chemistry was working on and kind of see where the progress was, assign different things, touch base on that. And then on the front over here, we have Ian Maggill. He was the group creative director. I originally interviewed with him when I was getting the internship. I didn't see a whole lot of him this summer because he was getting married and doing a bunch of different things. So I would touch base with him for a couple different things, but he was in Pittsburgh, so I would go to him for direct things so I could talk to him. As I was at chemistry, I was assigned 3 different main projects. I like to break them up that way. My primary account was UPMC Health Plan, so that's what I spent most of my days doing. As I got further into my internship, I started getting more into the chemistry newspaper, which was assigned to me around in July. And then CG Insurance was a small little project that I had the opportunity to do in the midst of that. So starting off, like I said, UPMC Health Plan. I mentioned this was my biggest account and my main account. So every time I clocked in, I was clocking in under UPMC. With them, I did a bunch of different concepting and campaigns for their different Medicare, Medicaid campaigns that were going on. Basically, what I was doing was creating different ads in 8 million different sizes that you can imagine. So they would give us a campaign that said, here are the main things that you have to say. We need you to do it in 2 different ways, and then we need you to size that out in 10 different ways. So you can see I have some print ads here. I have some smaller digital displays. These are the bigger digital billboards. And oftentimes, they would get resized too for bus wraps, for bus shelters, and a bunch of different things. And this was a really cool moment that I experienced just recently, and I found myself experiencing more. Is one of the billboards that I designed towards the end of my internship. I was driving home one day and I spotted it and I was like, oh my gosh, I made that. So I took a picture of it. It's great, you can't really see. But it happens often now, which is always really exciting and rewarding to see. UPMC really taught me how to find things to be proud of, because as you're doing the same thing over and over again and you're working with medical terminology, it can kind of get repetitive and it can kind of sometimes be boring. But really finding the opportunities that you can to make something stand out or find like a little thing to be excited about was something I did like to away from UPMC. My next project is the chemistry newspaper, and it was honestly the most exciting thing that I got to work on while I was there. These are a couple of the spreads that I did. It was a full printed newspaper, and that was the back cover there. So what chemistry does is they create this newspaper that highlights their achievements, their awards, the work that they've done, really anything that they want to showcase. And they send that out to their current clients and potential clients. So it really is a big deal to bring in new clients for them. So they put this fully in the hands of me. They said, Lexie, you're going to do the entire newspaper. And I worked with one other copywriter. So this project taught me a lot about leadership. I really had to take charge and do the entire thing. Like it wasn't anybody else to fall back onto. So that was really cool. I also learned a lot about speaking up and using my voice, which I tend to be a little bit intimidated by. So originally when I was assigned this project, I had a lack of content. They kind of said, here's what we need, run with it. So I found myself having to email people over and over and over again to get pictures, to get content, to get ideas, get previous things. So So that was something I had to be very persistent with. And then leading off of that lack of content comes over-designing. Because there was a lack of content, so if there's an entire spread that needs a bunch of pictures and it didn't have all of those pictures yet, I found myself going really, really heavy with typography and just overdoing it, and it started to look tacky. But at the time, without pictures, I thought it looked great. So I would present it to the senior designer that was checking it on like a bi-weekly basis, and he would say, this is a little bit too much, this isn't quite the brand that we're going with, we need to fix things. And originally, that was really hard for me to hear. As a designer, you never want to hear that you're doing too much or that what you're doing isn't working. But I started to learn how to not take these critiques so personally and start, again, speaking up, getting what I needed to make these improvements. And that was how I learned how to take critiques much better. Another little project that I had the opportunity to work on was with CG. This was kind of in the midst of my UPMC work because my UPMC work was getting kind of repetitive. So I got put on this project. It was pretty quick, but this is CG Insurance. I was put on here to get more experience in creative brief meetings and also to do some, again, more creative design requests. I got to experiment a little bit because they were trying to find a new way to do organic content, so just regular posts on Instagram that weren't super salesy. So they told me to figure out how to do a little 2D animation and turn their main character into a 2D graphic. So that's what I did, and I had a lot of fun doing that one day. I also got to do some pretty basic print ads that was pretty typical what I was doing in UPMC. But a lot of these were really fun, and I got a chance to be super creative, which was exciting. A lot of my lessons and takeaways from my internship don't necessarily correlate with design. I feel like everybody could use them, but I'm going to correlate them to my design. So I found every opportunity to put my all into things. As I mentioned with UPMC, finding everything that you can to be proud of. It can be really easy to get super repetitive and just do the bare minimum to get by. But I really did make it a point to come away with something I was proud of at the end of it, because it wouldn't matter if I designed a boring billboard at the end of the summer and then I would have nothing to show for. So I really did try to find every opportunity to grow and learn new things. I also learned that communication is vital, which I might have already known, but I really learned that in a professional workspace. Communication is vital. I need to speak up to get things done. You can't just sit in the back corner, especially as an intern. People are expecting you to ask questions. And the people there really want you to succeed, but they also need you to succeed. Like, you are working for them. So I learned to be a bit more comfortable with that and be more comfortable with asking things. I also learned that the real world does not have to be scary if you just allow yourself to sink into it. Everyone there wants the same thing, and they're all doing the same thing that you want to do. So learning that it's not so scary calms you down a little bit. And lastly, the biggest thing that I think I took away from my internship was something that I told myself on a daily basis, and I will continue to use, is that everything will make sense eventually. When I first started to get assignments, especially in the very beginning of my internship, I really overwhelmed myself like immediately. And I would convince myself, I can't do this, I need to ask someone else to do it, I have no idea how to start this. I would be really overwhelmed. But as I started to tell myself that everything will make sense eventually, I would take a moment and I would breathe, and I had to learn how to trust myself to just work through it. Sometimes everything would make sense after a week of working on it, and sometimes all I had to do was reread the project for you. So this quote was something that really did get me through every single day that I was working. And it is also something that chemistry really did teach me throughout all of the experience that I've gone through this summer. And I will continue to use not only this quote, but all of the experience that I had all summer through all of the years to come as a graphic designer in the real world. Any questions for me? Joe?
Working at home and being in the office as well, do you think that helped your flexibility with your internship?
I think it definitely did. I found out that I really liked working hybrid. That would definitely be the goal, just because it's nice to switch up your working environment. The office was kind of, there weren't a whole lot of people in the office on the days that I was there, so getting to be home also and like flexible was really nice.
Was there anything about your internship that you were hoping to get out of it?
Yes, I would say that I wish I could have expanded more not necessarily within CG, but the more meeting experience, the getting to sit in with senior designers, critiquing more specific things. I did tell them that at the very end of my internship too, that I wish that I could have been involved more in the process. A lot of what I was directly involved in was getting the project brief, but I would have liked to sit down with the client more and kind of discuss that process more. So I did mention that at the end. So I think just maybe more of the business side of it actually.
You mentioned like the routine of it kind of became very, I guess, boring, but what were some ways that you mentioned, like finding little things in your work? What were some ways you kind of offset that and you found just enjoyment in your work, even though it was repetitive?
Right. A lot of what I did to spark creativity was talk to, I mentioned Ed. He would have a lot of ideas of how to help more experience than I do. So getting to talk through that creative process was always really helpful. I would create mood boards and stuff to find cool different ideas that I could piece into my own work. So just mostly collaborating with people that really sparked my creativity.
You mentioned the hard critiques that came down. Do you have any advice for your peers of just ways to stay open to that?
Like I said, I wouldn't take it personally, and I still need to remind myself that on a daily basis about everything. So taking those critiques for what they actually are, and not thinking that if somebody has an issue with something that you're a horrible designer or you're a horrible producer or a horrible sports announcer. Just taking them for what they are and not taking them directly. Well, thank you guys again for being here. I'll see you guys.
Tim Durkin here, live from the Kansas Auditorium, here to tell you all about my experience at WOAY TV in Oak Hill, West Virginia. Buckle up. It's going to be a wild and wonderful ride. So first, right off the bat, where is WOAY? Well, as Micah said earlier, it's in beautiful Oak Hill, West Virginia. It's near Beckley, if you don't know. It's around 4 hours from my house in Pittsburgh, so it was definitely a longer distance than I was used to. Some of the key people at WOAY. First up, we have Will Briggs, the news director, and then Mike Lee, the assistant news director. Will Briggs was only there for around a week of my internship, so for the majority of it, I was coming to Micah for any questions that I had. So what did a typical day look like for me at WOAY? Well, at 9 a.m., I would come in the door and have to find a story. I could ask Micah for one, I could come up with one myself, or most commonly, there was a giant whiteboard in the newsroom that had multiple stories for each day, and I would just pick one of those. Once I found a story, I was able to call up the person I was going to interview to see if they were actually available. And once I got that, I got all the camera equipment, which is the camera, the mic, XLR, the SD card, the battery, the tripod, all of that. Got into a news car, stayed by myself, and drove out to the story. Once I was at that story, I got to film the interview, sometimes two, and then film all relevant people. Once I had filmed all of that, it was back to WOAY to edit film, which is a video. Now, I could either do a package or a ghost slot. Package is whenever I would write a script, and then voice it over, and sometimes I would cue it as well. A voice slot is whenever I would write a script, and then the anchor would read it with footage that I had shot, and then the anchor. I was only required to get one package per day, but towards the end, I was getting a package and a song. This is just going to be a short example of what it looked like when I was on WOAY. Here in Greenbrier County, in this pavilion behind me, I wouldn't really say it's a small part of the county's history. It's tax season here in Fayette County, so I decided to pay a visit to the office of the assessor where you can pay your taxes. Though this year, you may be able to get some money back. And with the new money allocated to the state, Bluefield hopes to build new structures that will help the local community and surrounding area. The Ruby assures the public that even though big changes are coming to the Summersville area, the way that the lake behind me is being maintained won't be changing at all. Here in Greenbrier County, in this pavilion. So what are some of the highlights of WOY? Well, you already saw a little bit of it, but the number one thing was that independence. Some of the stand-ups I did within my first month, within my first 2 weeks there. And that's something that was just because of my unique situation with WOY. Micah, being my boss, already knew my skill set going in. He knew that I could put out good work. So being able to get that experience from day one made it so much better. Second was making connections and meeting people. I think West Virginians kind of have a reputation of being friendly. And I'd say that's absolutely true. Everyone at WOY was so accepting and welcoming. And all of the sources that I interacted with were great as well. It made me realize that if somebody is passionate about their work, they make me passionate about it as well. Third was discovering my path. Prior to WOY, I had no clue what I wanted to do in this industry. I wanted to be a director, a producer, photographer, MMJ, no clue. But once I was out of WOY, I realized that being an MMJ is what I wanted to do. And lastly, maybe a small thing, but I got a paycheck. That's not something that every intern gets, and I even got to save a little bit more money because I spent the entire summer crashing midnight this summer. Now, that isn't to say that there weren't some challenges with WOY. First, right off the bat, I got food poisoning my first day with WOY. So, the night before, Micah went to the local broker and bought some peaches. He brought them back, and being just the gentleman he is, decided to share them with me. Unfortunately, those peaches were not ripe. So, the next day, which happened to be my first day, we had to leave early because we were severely ill. So, thanks, Micah. You're a peach. Next up was identity. So, I mentioned earlier how I was independent and I got paid, but my title was still MMJ intern. But no one called me an intern. I was always doing the work of MMJ. And so that might not seem like that big of a deal to some, but that kind of conflict really started bothering me towards the end. The third was the distance. I showed it earlier. It was around 4 hours from my home. I usually use the summer to catch up with friends and family, but I wasn't really able to do that this summer. And lastly, if there is one thing that WOY taught me, it's that I never want to live in West Virginia. I'm used to having conveniences 5-10 minutes away. But if I want to go to a grocery store in West Virginia, you're looking at 20 to 30. Simple things like that, just got to have So, what were some of the biggest takeaways from my time at WOY? The first is that journalists have a real, tangible impact on the communities they serve. I'll give you an example. So, one of my last weeks there, I did a story on the Alderson Farmers Market. I was the one who had come up with the story, but I can tell you, I was dreading it. I said, what's the story? What's the angle I'm going to take? So I went there. And for those who don't know, Alderson is a very small community in West Virginia. And so I found out, after talking to one of the people there, that many rely on this farmers market for income and some for food. So I really tried to hone in on that aspect, that human element to the story, and really try to do my best with it. And you can see right there in the messages that the lady I interviewed actually reached out and said thank you for the great job you did. She posted it, and the mayor of Alderson himself saw it and reposted it. And I just thought that was so cool. I did that. I had that in me. And I think that's just something really special that journalism do. Second, time management is not optional, it's a necessity. There was one day when I had to go from Oak Hill to Princeton, get a story, go from Princeton to Hinton, get a story, then go from Hinton back to Oak Hill, edit both stories together for the 5 p.m. test. I did it. I don't know how. And I did it a couple times. But it made me realize how vital, how the skill of time management is. And finally, each day can and will bring something new. That's something that I really love and cherish about the news industry. That one day I could be doing a story about the Alderson's Farmers Market, or I could just be doing a story about Bridge Day, people just jumping off a bridge. That's something that just happens in West Virginia. And that's just something that I really learned to appreciate in the news industry. And finally, this was my last day at WOAY. I was working on a story, and I was called into the newsroom, and everyone was there and showed me this. They got me a cake, they got me a letter with everyone signing it, including Mr. Whiskers, the station cat, that they pinned him down and got his paw print. And it's a frame of a picture of me and the station cat, and some root beer, because everyone knows I love root beer. And it just really meant something to me. It proved beyond a shadow of any reasonable doubt that I could have a positive impact on this community. And I think that really meant something to me. So, thank you, WOAY. And thank you all for listening. All right, any questions?
I'd like to start with Bridge Day. They wear parachutes or hang gliding suits. They don't just jump off the bridge freestyle. Dang, that was super cool. Was there a biggest moment for you? What was the big Tim Durkin has made it moment?
While you're looking at it, I mean, this was a big story. Summersville Lake had become the newest state park in West Virginia, and they put up the sign. Huge media event, so many people were there. I mean, people from Charleston, West Virginia were there. I met a woman there that was working for radio. I teased her a little bit about radio for the diabetes. And afterwards, I was able to interview Governor Jim Justice, and that was actually the second time that I interviewed him. And afterwards, I thought, it might be a little bit more professional to leave. I was like, can I take a picture with your dog, please? And he said, yeah. So that really made it, that cemented that experience. Good. Barry?
So, I mean, obviously you've worked with Myah before this, living with him, during your internship as well. How is that like? How is working with him but also under him from where literally just the year before you were a student with him?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a change in relationship, but I think it worked out just because we know each other very well and we know each other's styles. So for the one story where I said it's not a small part of the community and there was that giant pavilion behind me, Mike was actually the one on the ground shooting up to make it look as big as possible. So we would just go out on stories together sometimes, and we would just come up with ideas, and we just rolled with it. So I think that it was a definite change in status of the relationship. I think it was a positive.
Did you ever get Myah back for the Peaches?
No, I never did get Myah back for the Peaches. I couldn't think of anything else in that. All right, so next up, for our final presentation, we have Eric Bennet.
This summer, I had the privilege and honor of being able to work as an intern at Jonestown's Food Complex, Jonestown, Pennsylvania. And when it came time for me to look for internships and where to apply, I knew that there was one I could apply to, which was Washington Dolphins. But I knew, and deep down inside that, in my opinion, I don't find baseball to be all interesting. I found it to be a bit boring. I don't watch it at all. So when this opportunity came around, I knew I should jump that. Now, the way this came about was one of the announcements of the track. Somebody might know David Martin, a former student himself. Last year, I worked in men's sports, and he announced his high school football in sports. And And then he was talking about how he was working up there. I'm like, oh, that's nice. I must see if they had any internships. So I got on the Facebook page one day. I was scrolling through to hopefully find things that had been posted. And I saw they had posted for last season for there. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. You know, you went over whatever, you had to get more information about it. And eventually it came to be that he's like, yeah, you're trying to read the policies and things go. And then the phone call sent me my resume and I said, the broadcast of the video that I worked camera for 3 years for, and then he said, you're hired. So, as a broadcast production intern at Hudson Speedway, I had a few different responsibilities. I was a camera operator, producer, director, and then throughout the week I would go back through and watch the broadcast from previous Saturday just to figure out any highlights and then send them off to the boss. So as a camera operator, I was operating 1 of 4 cameras. There was a leader camera, a camera in turn 1, which is what I'm pictured here, and then a mobile camera. And then producer, that's pretty much like switching between cameras, switching between graphics, doing replays, all that kind of stuff. And then the director, I will say, one of the only time working as director, in my opinion, I found it to be a little bit nerve-wracking because especially since I was, entering a racetrack and everything was wrong, happening so quick and you miss something, I was a little bit nerve-wracking, so at least for now, I don't make a director, but maybe in the future that could change, especially with, maybe working with sports like football or perhaps. With the leader, so I'm out of camera. My main goal was to pretty much get shots of anything that I was a leader camera. I pretty much follow the leader of the race on track, unless that's what it was. But for the battle camera, I have to be focused on like the 2 or 3 cars battling for position on the track, which is what you see here. And then if everything, say we're under caution and no race moving on, I just find another stationary that comes in with footage of the shots. I think that seemed interesting. The mobile camera, my goal was, as you can see here, the main job was to get shots of the winner of the race and victory home. Each time I try to get, different intro shots like that, I get the side, the front, and the driver's side. And I'd also, during the race, I did, pit road, had to do other shots, either use a B-roll or a cutaway or anything. And then sometimes, during the race, they take my camera and I do like a flyby and all the cars that come across the finish line. That's pretty cool. And then, coming up here, once I worked on this camera one time, this became my favorite position for the rest of my internship, was the turn 1 camera. My main goal for the turn 1 camera was I would follow the cars coming out of turn 3 and 4, punch the green flag on the start finish line, then follow them as they go into turn 1 and 2. And then I also, you can see here, catch interesting shots like that. And then, as I said before, my main goal is whenever there wasn't no racing happening on the track, I would get any interesting shots and cut away or just stationary shots and do one for anything. So, for the group of interns, there were about 6 interns. And one of the interns was up to be really communicative. Ended up being my brother, Now, when he applied for this, he really couldn't do an internship because he was only a freshman. Like, he still applied anyway, just so he could, get out there and see if the experience. And then, one day enough, he was able to do it. And I found that since I've worked with my brother, especially if I was on camera and he was saying, the producer or whatever, it made it a lot easier, just the fact that if we both watch NASCAR and we're ready to it, we know what each other's looking for. If I'm on camera and he just, I know what kind of shots to get, and so that way it make it a little bit easier. Our boss, Jared Adams. What about him? He started working out at Durkin Speedway in 2020 as a photographer and videographer making highlight videos for track. And then for the 2022 season, he was promoted to the media and production supervisor. Pretty much, he oversaw social media and then the broadcast of the races on aired live on the season on floor racing. And then for next season, he was promoted to general manager for Durkin Speedway, which. And knowing in this past season, there's no other guy who I would want to be manager again. So my travel protocol. So from where I live in Pennsylvania, It's about roughly 69 miles, give or take, the quickest way from my house to Youngstown Speedway. It takes about an hour and a half to take from traffic. And an hour and a half drive meant gas was pretty expensive. Now, luckily, since I have brother with me, we would take turns driving and then we try to share it and pay for gas, which would make it a little bit easier, but in the end, it still hurt my wallet. So for the first 2 weeks, food call was at 2 o'clock because the races were push up travel, so we didn't take advantage of the warm weather for the warm weather. And then for the winter season, food call was at 4 o'clock with the broadcast at 6 o'clock. So then I would leave home roughly around 2 o'clock, and then give me around 30 minutes from the room, so in case anything came up on my way drive there. A typical day, I would arrive at the track between 3:30 and 4 o'clock. And then wait for the other interns to get there. And then after the intern would get there, we get there, we make sure everything was running smooth, pass our boss, share everything that we do, walking around the track. And then about an hour before the broadcast would go live, we get us all the cameras, plug them in, make sure they work, and then we don't want to have all the cameras 5 minutes before the broadcast starts, and then the cameras will work. And once all the cameras were set up, all the interns would go back down to the press box, and we would monitor their meeting of the remaining practice sessions, or they call them hot laps, or the driver. So we can understand like who was the driver watching that. And then about 10 minutes till the broadcast starts with all the positions, so they just put around the things, we get shots and make sure things work properly and get ready for that. So, and the last sporting events, not necessarily football or soccer, but for other ones, rain is a big problem. And you can see here, you really can't race in the rain, unless you're road racing, but for NASCAR, you really can't race in the rain. And that was a problem because there was a total of 5 nights that kind of back that were affected by rain. And this video is here is from the championship race, which is number 9, that had to be sadly canceled due to weather. And as you can see, on the tuning points on the coast, there were some fans that weren't happy. Because with that, they were like, oh, we're going to go off the track, it's going to cut up this season. That's just not the case. So, with this internship, I had been able to get an amazing opportunity. So I was at work one day, and then Jared texted me and said, hey, I had this opportunity to work as a producer for a race on Toledo, Ohio. I'll do it. He said, he's going to be great with it. I'm sure I'll do it. Make sure everything's around. And then, see there, I text him from my boss for that race, was Tony Stevens. He is the owner and CEO of Pit Road TV, which is a company that broadcasts different races and stuff country. So the race wasn't broadcast on Pit Road TV. It was, I believe it was broadcast live on Speed Sport TV, but they hired him and his crew to kind of broadcast the race. So you can see, I worked with the crew list there. I was screwed out of the TV, technical director, pretty much like the producer, pretty much my job was to switch between cameras, push on cool screen graphics, and then, yeah, my job was there. I can say that after working that race that night, I think it was a lot more what I was used to every Saturday night, but I'm glad I got the chance to do it because it actually helped me realize what I'm experiencing in the real world and just prepare me for the future. And if it wasn't for Jared giving me this opportunity, I don't know where I'll be because this, I feel like, because of the opportunities with Tony and his career in the future, it's really a great thing.
Yeah, what do you think was your biggest accomplishment from this internship?
I would have to say getting the chance to go work at Race on Toledo because it was really supposed to be there, but he had something that came up, he really didn't make it. The fact that I feel like he had enough confidence in my abilities to work with told me he actually, like my work, and said that he can't work with me in the future. So I'd say the fact that I was able to get a chance to do it, I'm going to raise on
How were you able to apply what skills you had learned from here at this, like WCTV and Wooston, and then also Greene County Sports? How were you able to apply that to your internship and maybe some other things that you also learned while you were out there and that you could apply here as well?
I was able to apply being a camera off, football and basketball for us, and football, the green sports. And it's a little different with racing, like football and baseball, I'm trying to go a bit fast to keep up. But other than that, being camera off, it's a bit different. Now, this internship, it was the first time I worked as a producer or film director. So working as a producer in Jonestown gave me the opportunity to work as a producer for Green Sports, which was a new position for this season, which I can say I can't tell you which position I like more, producer or camera, because I like it both the same, but
I was actually going to ask about that last point. Do you think that this internship, you mentioned you did camera, you did produce, is there anything that came up as a new love or anything that cemented as a, I've always loved working with, like you said, the camera or the producer?
I would say, I really didn't question about working as a producer and a director. Now, working as a director, I mean, really a little bit different than how fast-paced working, but working as a producer, I mean, that's like up there with the point of working with the camera, like, because there's all different things to do, like, you must push and pull some graphics, and especially if I do a replay, like,
So with you already being a racing fan, did you learn anything else while, anything new while being there?
Not particularly now. I mean, other than the fact that like it's a local small track, and there's like different like rules for like small tracks like this compared to like big NASCAR. Other than that, nothing really much good.
That concludes the program for today. We will meet again next week, Tuesday, 12 o'clock, same location. We have 3 internship presentations. How about a round of applause for our presenters?